Well, hi again. I hope you're enjoying this class so far and finding online classes to be interesting and also a learning experience in more than one way. I know that some of you are lagging behind and feeling like you're not understanding the whole process. Some of you have lots of questions about how to be doing this. Some of you have emailed me during these cold, snowy days and asked me what needs to be done and how to navigate around the blackboard. Hi Carrie, hi Cassandra. But you're doing fine, and you're learning some new techniques and some new technologies while you're learning how to think about counseling in a different way. This is Class 2, Principles of Community Counseling, Multimodal Model, say that 3 times fast, and whether in fact all problems are really mental health biological problems. You're supposed to read Lewis chapters 1.1 through 1.3. They'll be up on the blackboard in the documents section. And you're supposed to go to the competency building activity 1.1, which is on page 17 and 18 in Lewis, and do that. That's a beginning needs assessment for yourself. And finally, I want you to read this wonderful book, Edwards and Heath, chapter 1. Today, you're going to learn, and this week, you're going to learn about some of the concepts of community counseling, like the belief that in the community can be found both the keys to cause and to cure. We also believe that a multifaceted developmental or prevention approach is far more effective than a remedial approach. We look for, instead of looking at problem-focused, we look at solution-focused kinds of ideas and how to get things done. We believe that the focus in counseling should be on groups with common needs, and that community counseling methods are also applicable to all kinds of institutional or agency settings. An interesting thing is that several years ago, one of the groups in this very class took a needs assessment of all the students, or as many as they could get, in the counseling program, and asked them questions about what kinds of additional learning they would like to have. Lo and behold, one of the things that they came up with is that there was no course on working with children or youth. Can you imagine that? And so I developed a course. It's now working with children and youth in a systemic way. That's a course that came out of this class. Incidentally, we've been talking about mission statements, and the new mission statement that's on the Department of Counselor Education's website is because of this class 3 years ago, when a bunch of people decided that they could write a better mission statement. Good things come out of this class. We also look at and believe that there's limitations to the traditional medical model of working with people on an individual psychopathological way of doing things. We want you to begin to think about yourself as using yourself as a consultant. If you're a school counselor, you'll be probably doing lots of consulting with both the other teachers in regards to how to work with specific children. But you'll also be a consultant if problems happen, to set up prevention programs to deal with all sorts of situations. There's been a rash sometimes of suicides. One of the things that you'll be looked at to do is to begin to assess how to help people understand how they can work with suicide prevention in their classrooms so that it doesn't affect other children. We'll be looking at a number of things. Another thing that you'll be looking at today on the PowerPoint is a multimodal model interventions scale or grid, and how to begin to make decisions in regards to whether in fact which model is more appropriate for you to use depending on the situation. So we'll be looking at direct service, consultations. You know, some of you, even in the community counseling program, you may develop specific really cool programs and decide that you want to market this. So you may well want to go to the PTA groups or other kinds of community agencies and do a speech about it. That would be prevention. At the same time, you'd be getting your name out there and you hand them cards. There's all kinds of things that you can do in order to get a bigger bang for your buck, so to speak. Two other additional things that I think are really interesting have to do with media or other technologies. How many of you ever really thought about media as a method of prevention? Well, you're going to see a couple of YouTube videos in regards to prevention. I'd like you to look at them and see which ones you think are really worthwhile and work and why. But they use them all the time. If you look around the campus here, you'll see signs in regards to things like whether college men really respond to rape when they see it, whether they're willing to intervene if they see it happening. All sorts of things like that. Just media can be used in a number of ways to prevent things. And the last one in the multimodal grid is politics. And I'd like some of you to think back, those of you that were in my 401 class, to think back to when Pat McGinn came, the current president of ICA, came to visit. And she talked about how she and a number of people, she called it the Hardy Band, actually went out and lobbied and got licensure for counselors. That's a way that politics can be really useful. And you can use politics in a number of different situations when it's a large institutional kind of thing that happens and you just know that you need to be working to affect change. You need to broaden your view of what it means to be a counselor. And that's what we're going to be talking about. You know, there are multiple reasons why counselors should really move past the usual traditional model of sitting with clients one-on-one and begin to see themselves as really competent in multimodal models that address the justice issue. That is part of how our traditional model marginalizes those who really can use our help. The one-on-one method is really for those people in the upper middle class and the upper class. It doesn't affect those that have many, many problems, dilemmas that could use our help. There are other ways. Remember that one-on-one counseling will never address or deal with the kinds of mental health problems that we see in a systemic way. Read what Seligman says later on and pay attention to it. By the way, I was sort of interested in the fact that one of you had read the Surgeon General report and was amazed that there was so many people that were affected by mental illness. I need to point out that what he also meant in that was that the people that he says are affected by it, he's talking about families and employers and community. He's not talking about individual people. You need to understand that. Finally, the question that's posed by the final YouTube video you're going to see on this PowerPoint, and don't jump ahead just to see it, and my relative small tirade at the beginning of this PowerPoint regarding intervention is really related to an ethical concern. As you move along in your coursework, or those of you that have been around for a while, go back and pay attention to the ethical codes we're tied to, you should note that one of the ethical codes is that clients have the right to self-determination. Self-determination. This is a difficult piece of information for some of us to struggle with. It's also one ethical dilemma that you will wrestle with for the rest of your career, I'm sure. But please, think about what it means, how it affects family members, and also how it affects our field. And think about how you'd feel if you were one of those people that was having an intervention done on you. Some of us in the field believe that being in denial or being resistant, when you look at it from the client's perspective, means only that my view of my life is different than the view that other people have. It should also humble us as clinicians, because we're always faced with the notion that we can never really change anyone. We can only change ourselves. Enjoy yourself this week and stay warm.